Hello, hello. Welcome once again to another edition of Quoth the Raven, Louis Bright Raven. I'm your host, Louis Bright Raven, 33-year veteran writer, illustrator, editor, and publisher of comics, science fiction, fantasy, horror, and role-playing games. And it is Thursday, February 20th, 2025. Time for reviews with our good friends, John Figueroa Norris and
Hello.
Paul.
Hello, hello.
And if you probably can't tell, but we have a fourth member. He's just off camera. He doesn't want to be seen right now. But the Midnight Monster is here with us. So, how's the week been, boys?
Not bad.
Yeah, can't complain.
That's good. I've got complaints, but I'm not going to share them tonight.
Right.
I mean, come on. You know, we got so much to talk about, so let's just go ahead and get to it. We're going to start with Bug Wars #1. 499 from Image Comics, writer Jason Aaron, with art by Mahmoud Asrar and colors by Matthew Wilson. Covers, several of them. One that's shown here is by Asrar and Wilson. There was also covers by Peach Momoko, Pepe Larraz with Matthew Wilson colors, and Matthias Vergara. Lettering by Becca Carey. Editor is Heather Antos. Genre, I would say science fiction fantasy. Released February 12th, 2025. What's it about? Slade Slaymaker, that's a heck of a last name, isn't it? Is a kid from Alabama suddenly lost in the vicious world beyond his imagining. World of marauding armies, spell-casting spider witches, and beetle-riding barbarians. A kingdom of tiny but deadly warriors hidden in his own backyard. The same world that saw his father eaten alive by insects and now plunges young Slade into the middle of a brutal bug war to determine the fate of his family. What did I think? Conceptually, this is drawing from a number of different comics and movie concepts that we've seen plenty of times before, ranging from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids to Sword of the Atom from Jan Sternad and Gail Kane in the 80s to Gail Simone and John Burns' arc on the Atom and other things. Mike Grell's Warlord. So the story has to rely on two things for me. The visual design and dynamics of the art, and whether or not the characters are anybody I can actually care about on the writing side. Now, artistically, I think Mahmoud Asrar does a really bang-up job visually. It's wonderful work. But I think Jason Aaron's writing leaves quite a bit to be desired, at least in terms of the dialogue. Way too much cussing for no good reason. I'm not saying there shouldn't be any cussing. There's places where it would be appropriate in the storyline, but it isn't. I think it's a little bit excessive to try to make the book more adult and mature, and I think that's doing the story a level of disservice. You're gonna get down? Okay. Kitty went away. I don't feel like the book even needed to be mature readers based solely on this single issue. And that doesn't mean that when you get to further issues, it could be more mature themed and stuff, and that's fine. But it probably will be, because the writer is saying that Game of Thrones is another influence on the book. And when I think about all the cussing that was in that movie and all in that book and in those TV shows and all the nudity and other stuff that was in that. If that's what he's going for, then I guess it hits the mark. I just ask myself why. When you've got these other influences, why not just keep it PG and make the story more accessible for preteen and teen audiences? That's just my opinion. It's not like Jason Aaron doesn't have a penchant for using foul language. See his comic book Southern Bastards. But if this is the kind of content he wants to make, all the power to him. I just know if I were his editor, he would have really had to convince me for the justification of it. Chris, you had some questions about that as well, did you not?
Questions about what?
The language.
Oh, so yeah, the F-bombs were kind of off-putting because, like as you mentioned, there's just no reason for them. They were just, I think they were just thrown in, like you said, just to make the comic more adult. I completely agree with that analysis of it. As far as the story, like I loved the art. The art was really good. That was the one redeeming quality of this book for me. But the story, I personally don't like being thrown into chaos and then having to figure out what's going on. And that's kind of what this book did. Like, you're just thrown into chaos and all these characters that you know nothing about, don't care about. And it was a bit wordy as far as the word balloons and dialogue go. So I didn't care for that either. That's why I gave it 2 stars.
Okay, I thought part of the reason you really didn't like it was because of the language, the excessive foul language. But you're saying there's other elements that bothered you. Okay.
Yes, and the language is part of it. So
okay, well, no, I get that. I thought the language was a huge part of it, though. When
it was completely unnecessary.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I agree with that assessment. I gave it a 3.5, though. John doesn't have a rating because I know he didn't read it. But given the amount of foul language, I can pretty much assure you that John would have thrown this book in the trash before he finished it. So I mean, I'm telling you, I mean, it was a little bit brutal there. Here's some of the artwork for it, and the artwork is really nice.
It is. It's very nice. Yes.
The coloring by Matthew Wilson's sharp. Mama does a really good job studying the insects that he's drawing. The beetles look correct design wise. You can tell he's done. You can tell he's done his research. He does a really good job of depth perception. A whole lot of stuff in here that I just really surprised at how well it was done. I just wish it didn't have, like I said, quite all the language. But I don't know if you noticed this, Chris. There's nudity in this book.
Oh, you know what? I did not even notice that.
Yep. A lot of the characters in this battle scene, if you look in different ones, there's bits showing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Now I see it.
And so it's like interesting. So I guess it is a mature reader's book. And then again, we ask ourselves, well, is that necessary? I don't know.
I think the concept in and of itself lends itself to a teen readership.
Yeah, right. But like if you can see the bottom panel here, where the guy has the axe swinging in the background.
Yep.
You can see it. It's
yep. He's got his wobbly bits hanging out.
Yeah, it's just a little bit there. And then we got the green goo guts or biting the head off and everything else. So it's like, it's I can see what they're saying. It's a mature reader's book, but it didn't have to be drawn like that to get the same concept across either.
Right.
So I think that's why we're a little bit we're not saying don't buy this book by any means. It's an entertaining enough book for adults and everything. And if I was just thinking of it as an adult, I'd probably even give it a 4 rather than a 3.5. But I just happen to look at it as based on what was the guy's influences. I would have preferred him to go a little more closer to those influences.
Yeah, and it just may not be our cup of tea.
Yeah.
So if this is your cup of tea, absolutely, the book is worth buying for the artwork alone. So,
Yep. Okay, let's go on to our next book, which is Green Lantern Corps number 1, $3.99. Publisher DC Comics, writer Jeremy Adams and Morgan Hampton. Artist is Fernando Passarin with inks by Auclair Albert. Colorist is Arif Prianto, lettering by Dave Sharp. Cover artists, multiple covers. The main one here is Passarin and Albert. There's covers by Ariel Olivetti, Dave Wilkins, Nathan Cesardi, and Gavin Guidry, and Luis Guerrero, and Kieran Grant. This book has a lot of editors: Paul Kaminsky, Kathleen Wisniewski, Marquis Draper, and Gillian Grant. Genre is science fiction superhero, and it was released on February 5th, 2025. What's it about? After the events in recent issues of Green Lantern, the regular title, apparently the Green Lantern Corps are building their ranks in public image again. John Stewart, Sinestro, and others head to Tamaran to try and stop a yellow fear construct that is destroying the planet that appears to be their planet's deity, Exile. What it turns out is it's a fear construct that happens to be being made by a true believer in Exile. And once Sinestro figures this out and finds the person manifesting it, he talks her down into gaining her will to control her fear and remove the threat. This in turn gains the Corps another new Green Lantern representing Tamaran, and then they head back to their headquarters on Oa to schedule their next mission, which is to go to Thanagar, and this means John will have to be paired with Shira Hall, aka Hawk Girl, Hawk Woman. There are some interesting side bits that the writers are dropping as potential side story character beats for future issues, but nothing enough to really judge at this point. Okay. As Chris says, you're kind of getting dropped in media res in the story, and you're in the middle of the action. You don't really know what's going on. There's a whole lot of characters that you don't necessarily know who they are. So a casual reader who hasn't been reading the Green Lantern series in recent years might just get lost and try to figure out who is whom amongst all the current generation of Green Lanterns, and there really isn't enough to make a new reader interested enough to care to find out. That, to me, is not a good sign for number 1 issue. While the story is solid enough to get the plot presented, there just seems to be a whole lot of story leading into this launch that a reader should be at least semi-aware of to really get the context of what's going on. That having been said, I don't think it's dog shit the way some people are claiming about it elsewhere on YouTube. Yes, Wes, I'm talking about you. I just don't agree that this is at least only partly. I do not agree that this isn't at least partly Jeremy Adams scripting. It's been accused that Jeremy Adams didn't write this book at all. It's all Morgan, and I don't believe that. Not just plotting, not just breaking down the beats. There's scripting in here that is Adams' style, and I've seen similar bad jokes in Adams' other works. So don't hand me that nonsense. But I also don't read the context of those jokes as an attempt at humor. I read them as straightforward dialogue rather than as an attempt at humor, because a lot of these people who write comics aren't comedians. Let's put it that way. But when you start complaining or bitching as a reviewer about Joe Moline simply talking to John Stewart, and John Stewart's internal monologue is that Joe would be a good person for him to potentially confide in his secrets with, that doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be potentially for them to hook up, at least not in the context of that one scene. Now, maybe there's something that's been slowly building over the course of the last 2 years of Green Lantern books that I'm not privy to, but I don't think so. And I don't need to see reviewers screaming bloody blue murder over it and start whining that the character, meaning Joe is queer and that the writers are screwing it up or effing it up by having her be a friend or a listening post to Jon Stewart. I don't know what people think they're reading in that context that they need to be throwing temper tantrums. Do you understand that, Chris?
Yes.
You do understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
But you okay? So I'm not crazy here.
No, not at all. Okay. Of course, I will say that not being familiar with the character of Joe, I took that scene as a potential romantic interest.
Okay. So that's fair. And maybe that's what. Well, and see, that's okay to say. Okay, you saw it as someone who's not familiar. Now, Wes knows who that character is.
Right.
That's not effing it up. That's just saying, okay, that should have been better. You don't need to say you're effing it up. You can say, okay, there's some confusion here, and they need to clarify what their actual relationship is.
True.
That's what you say. You don't say, oh my God, these writers suck. They don't deserve to be existing.
Right. Exactly.
Then there's other things that they complain about, like how Jon Stewart made a living energy construct of his sister. Well, that was new to me. I didn't know anything about that. That's what I mean about being in media res in this book. And that was weird. Okay, I'd like to know a little bit more about that. And they hinted at it as something that's going to be addressed in future issues as the story unfolds if you're interested. I don't see a reason to complain about it. Do you?
No, really? Not at all.
Okay. Like I said, then people, not just Wes, but others are complaining that this isn't Jeremy Adams' work, it's Hampton's script, and that Morgan sucks because we don't like him. So now you're so angry or disappointed because you had such anticipation or expectations for this title, and it wasn't what you thought it was going to be or what you wanted. That's not reviewing comics. And so that kind of distracted me from reviewing this thing. But in terms of the story itself, it's there. It's functional. It introduces enough of the characters without really telling you enough about them to make you whether or not you care about them yet. But we at least know what's going on. Enough to go, okay, what we're going to find more out, but it's going to be slowly paced out. Fine.
Right.
It is not a good book for a person like you who's not been reading, or myself who has not been reading Green Lantern regularly. In that regard.
Well, I am familiar enough with most of the characters to kind of gauge what was going on. So that wasn't a problem. I thought it was an enjoyable story. It was a solid story. Of course, the artwork was really good, and I really enjoyed Sinestro being brought back into it. I've always liked that character. I thought that the almost compassion that he showed on Tamarin was kind of weird.
It wasn't really compassion as annoyance with Blackfire, with her chewing out the girl for having manifested the yellow fear creature.
Okay.
Because she was like, "Oh, I'm gonna have you, drawn and quartered or something for doing that," and he's like, "Shut up."
Yeah, as Blackfire, does. She's very, goes off the handle. So
yeah. So he's like, "Yeah, you stop right now."
I don't know. I took it as almost, like I said, like a weird in a way, compassion. Like
yeah, it is Sinestro's form of compassion, but I would say he was very snippish.
Yeah. But yeah, Sinestro was in top form. Like he was, pretty much true to his character. And as you mentioned, I didn't think about this before, but when you brought it up, this book is very much, I think, for steady readers of Green Lantern. It's not a book for newbies.
Right. So. Yeah. And I was hoping it would be more of the newbie thing in a way, because it has Teen Lantern, it has Joe, it has the other characters that I'm more interested in. I'm not really interested in a lot of the older guard anymore, but
Right.
it is what it is. So anyway, we both gave it 3 out of 5. Pretty much just a general average book.
So I got a question for both of you. Speaking as someone who's not involved in comic book production, but 4 editors seems like a lot. Do you think there was a reason that 4 editors were needed on this book?
Well, some of them are associate editors, assistant editors.
Right.
Yes and no. Not knowing the exact dynamics of who was doing what and why. I mean, it's hard to say, because like the lead editors are probably editing 3 or 4 different titles, and they're overseeing the overall, like the whole Green Lantern office and whatever's connected to the Green Lantern titles. And maybe one of the assistant editors was just heading up and overseeing the covers. I don't really know what exactly was there, but that's just who was listed on the credits. That's all I can say.
Okay.
And that's a possibility. Being pretty intimately involved with the comic book, production process, my guess is that this book suffered from being, late, as a lot of comic books do.
Yeah, that is possible too.
Yeah, and they had to bring in a bunch of different editors to get the job done.
There's that possibility. There's also the possibility that Morgan was brought in as a secondary writer, because there was, when you read the interviews with the 2 writers, that was what was inferred. So it could have been someone was there to be a go-between between Adams and Hampton as well.
Yeah. There's a multitude of reasons why there could have been that many editors. So
yeah. So hope that answered your question, John.
Good.
Okay. All right. We're gonna go to different book. This thing will let me. I'm trying to get to the right books. Oh, here's one for you to read about, Chris. Here we go, Chris.
Oh, you want me to read it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Minor Arcana, number 1 through 5, $4.99. Price. Publishers Boom Studios. Writer artist Jeff Lemire. Letterer Steve Wands. Editors Matt Gagne, Eric Harbour, Maya Bollinger. Genre supernatural drama. Released September 4th, 2024 through present. What it's about. Teresa, the daughter of a small-town psychic fraud, returns home to care for her ailing mother, however begrudgingly. But when Teresa discovers that there may be more to the magics than she originally believed, she'll find herself caught up in a town that desperately needs her help. How can she help others when she needs to figure out her own baggage before she causes more harm than good? As she delves into her own issues as well as the unseen world, she may find others seeking her out, and not just the clients of her mother, but something more sinister.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jeff Lemire's art is kind of a love-hate relationship for me. He's an excellent storyteller, and his art style fits with what he's doing, but sometimes that art style is just a tad jarring for me. I always want to love his stuff, but sometimes I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. It just feels unfinished. That's the best way I can describe it. But it's not unfinished. it's everything's where it's supposed to be. It's all set up. It's all structured correctly. It's just my mind's eye is perhaps seeing things from the unseen world that are supposed to be there, but not there in the art. I don't know. But anyway, the story is engaging. The characters are well crafted, as per usual for Lemire. pacing is fairly solid. Somehow I missed my copy of issue 4, or at least I can't find my copy. So I'm missing some of the elements of the story overall. But it's all working so far. I don't have a problem with it. It does feel like Lemire's trying to do part Ghost Whisperer and part John Constantine to me. And he hasn't quite gotten to the good part yet. And I guess that's why I'm not quite feeling it after this first story arc, but I see the potential in it. You read this as well, Chris. What did you think?
I got through most of it. I didn't get through all of it. I agree with your assessment of the art. I think for me, all the other parts of the art were fine and good, but the character art and designs were jarring for me. They're just a little off. And I don't mind weird art, but the character designs were just a little off-putting for me. That being said, though, the story was very enjoyable.
Well, when you say off-putting, do you want to say ugly-looking characters?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
They were. It was just the characters were ugly. Like the rest of the art was great and it fit the story, but the characters, were just ugly.
Yeah, but here's the funny part. He's consistently designed the characters throughout. And so it's all there like it's supposed to be. But then you try and figure out who's going to if this was being made into a movie, who would play these characters?
Right.
And he has this penchant of doing this with all of his books. I mean, if you've read Sweet Tooth, if you've read Underwater, I can't remember the name of it was called, Underwater Welder or something like that. But he has that penchant for his art style. So it's interesting. I just find myself wondering if is this a distraction from the story for you?
It wasn't enough of a distraction. I really enjoyed the story. The story with the dialogue were very engaging. That got me through the book.
Okay. All right. So you actually did give it a good rating. I gave it a 3, and you gave it a 4.
Yeah, based on the story alone, I really enjoyed the story.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know who did the cover on this one, on issue 3, because this was not the Lemire cover, obviously.
There is a signature there, but I can't read it.
Yeah. Let me see if I can. Franny?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with that. So
yeah, I mean, that looks pretty nice, though. Anyway.
Yeah, that art is very nice.
But anyway, yeah. I mean, we both like it enough that we're going to keep reading it, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. We're going to get to the next one here, which is John's.
All right. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Saturday Morning Adventures Volume 1. This is a trade paperback, collects the 4-issue miniseries from 2022 to 23. The series relaunched in May 2023 and is currently ongoing. Publisher is IDW Publishing. Writer is Eric Burnham. Artists are Tim Laddie and Sarah Meyer on colors. Lettering, Sean Lee, Jake M. Wood, and Nathan. Yeah, his last name got cut off a little bit. At least.
Yeah, it is. Is it Whittick?
I think so, yes. Cover artist is Tim Laddie. Editor Charles Beecham. Genre action adventure superhero comedy. Release date June 28, 2023. Rating all ages.
Hold on a second. Yeah, it got cut off in the whole thing, so I can't read it all out. Sorry about that. All right. There you go.
All right, so what it's about. So the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles first appeared in 1984, but it wasn't until 1987 that a catchy theme song and action-packed cartoon helped make them a global phenomenon. Now discover 4, quote, lost episodes that follow in the radical two-toed footsteps of the classic series. An unexpected power surge leaves the brothers trapped in a virtual training program, facing digital versions of their most fearsome foes in VR in Deep Trouble, like that title. Next, a mysterious piece of tech transforms one of Krang's stone soldiers into a power ballad belting rock star, but how long will the change last? It's a hair metal adventure for those about to rock. Then
I want to rock.
I guess I have to say, we salute you.
Yeah. Yes.
Then Casey Jones gets superpowers and he can't wait to up his crime fighting game. But when Raph and the others learn his powers come at a cost, can they convince Super Casey to give them up? And finally, when Baxter Stockman injects Splinter with microscopic mousers, Donnie will have to shrink himself, actually all 4 of them, down to save his sensei in Big Trouble in Master Splinter.
I love these titles.
Yeah.
The story titles are really good, and Eric Burnham's clever on that front.
Yep.
Okay, John, there you go.
All right, so like this, what I thought, like the solicitation mentioned, when the original TMNT cartoon aired in 1987, it launched Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird's creation into the stratosphere. I've never considered myself a Turtles fanatic, but I have enjoyed some of their various iterations over the years.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. While there were certainly much bigger fans of the show than I was, I did enjoy it and would eventually become a fan of several voice actors on that show, including Rob Paulson, who was Raphael, and Jim Cummings, who was a host of characters. He was Leatherhead and he was Shredder for part of the time on the show. And of course, both of those guys have had quite extensive voice acting careers. And of course, the Turtles have had their fair share of comic book series over the years, some of which I've read, including the Archie Comics Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Adventures series back in the day. I found that series to be very inconsistent, largely due to the rotating creative teams that worked on it. Some stories were good and some were not. So how does this series measure up? Well, if you tuned in to last week's show, and you should have, we reviewed the new Thundercats, Silverhawks, and Space Ghost books, and one major point of discussion was the extent to which the creative teams deviated from the look and the tone of the original series, and whether that was a good or a bad thing. Well, I can say with absolute certainty that for this series, Burnham and Laddie positively channel the spirit of the original show, and I love it. I think it's a great thing. They really got it. I think Burnham really nicely captures the personalities of the characters along with the puns and the corny jokes. And I mean, I think Laddie just nails the look, I think. Aided, of course, greatly by Myers' colors. I think this series accomplishes exactly what it sets out to do. I had a huge smile on my face while reading it, and this just really hit the sweet spot for me. This is the type of comic I really, really enjoy reading.
I'm pretty much in agreement with everything you just said. You gave it a 5. I'm only giving it a 4 because I didn't care for the Super Casey story quite as much as the other 3. But it was still well executed. I'm really not a Turtles cartoon fan, though. So maybe I'm a little bit skeptical or a little bit, not the audience in a way. So maybe that also gives me a little bit lesser score. But it's certainly a book that people should be reading. Chris, your thoughts?
So I I started reading what I thought was the right ones. I read that I read 2 of the wrong stories. But the stories I did read, they were enjoyable for what they were. I thought like John said, the artwork was just bang on.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of like in jokes that I got that I really enjoyed. The one I read was a Halloween book, and it had like the Freddy Krueger, rip off,
Mm-hmm.
and then I the second one I read was where they have this rock and they like channel the spirit of this old ninja and swordsmith trying to figure out what to do with this rock. And I thought the humor in that one was really excellent as well. So,
And that was from the more modern 2023 series, correct?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I unfortunately, for some reason, when John sent me the artwork with his review, he sent me the cover to the new series from 2023, and I didn't realize it. And I gave that to him, so he went to read the 2023 series instead of the mini series collected. So,
but what I did read was enjoyable. So for what it was, I was never a huge Turtles fan either, but it was good.
Let's take a quick look at some of the art. This is some of the sketchbook work from Tim Lottie, I believe you said his name was.
Yeah.
And it's really nice, really clean blue line work here. Very nice stuff.
Yeah, I really love his Master Splinter. I just love that.
Mm-hmm. And then here's some of the interior art. And, it's interesting. Lottie does a real good job of how to place figure placement in his layouts. How he's like the middle panel of the first page on the left here, how he's got all the characters in close quarters to each other, but they've all got enough different physical facial features and attributes in their posing and everything to make it all seem like everything's interactive with one another.
Yeah, and those word balloon placements are like masterful.
Yeah. And it's really cool. And then this is like when they get in the VR thing and they're all facing like, every single villain that they've ever faced. It's like, yeah, okay,
He really packs a lot into each panel. He really does.
He really does. And this is one of the Super Casey scenes, and I was just like, I don't know. I wasn't really quite feeling that one as much compared to the other ones, the other story art.
Yeah, I would agree.
And then here you go back to this, and here's Mikey bringing Splinter, who's unconscious, and we need to get help for him or whatever. And you just see there's a lot. Okay, sure, he didn't do a full background drop on the front page here. Let the colorist fill it in. There could have been that, but if they'd done that, it could have also been looking a lot more busier than it needed to be. So I don't mind him dropping the details out on the back of that. Now, granted, I would have drawn all the details in, but that's because I'm a Burn Perez guy. But in terms of this art style, I think it would have made the artwork look too busy.
Yeah, and it helps bring focus to what you're supposed to be looking at.
Yeah, so I don't have a problem with that. I also like the little mousers versus the mini.
There's white blood cells.
Yeah, Splinter's white blood cells. Yeah, and like that. That was cool. So yeah, it's interesting that they come up with these stories. I think Burnham's very underrated in that regard. Whoops. Come here. There we go. All right. I'm going to go back to another one that we haven't gotten to then. And that is one that we're going to let Chris read.
All right. We have Imagination, The Blood of Kings trade paperback. Publisher Aladdin on Simon & Schuster. Writer is Matt Miklush. Artist is Onofrio Orlando. Character designs by Ornella Greco. Colors by Antonio Ulizzi. Editor David Campiti. And not listed, but pretty sure on that one. Genre fantasy. Release January 7th, 2025. What it's about. This is a switchover from the popular Jack Blank prose YA novel series by Miklush to a graphic novel format with what appears to be a new character set in the same shared universe of the imagination. What it's about. Dreaming of measuring up to the legend of his dead parents, Scarin takes center stage in a battle for the crown of Veragog, where it's always 1404. He faces Zorn, the son of a displaced ruler who fled years ago following the cybernetic Rustov's invasion attempt. So this is wild fantasy with SF tech thrown in. Orlando's art effectively showcases Imagination's racially and culturally distinctive residents and settings as the high-action plot shifts scenes beyond Veragog's to fairy and futuristic Hightown, until an evil alliance in the Nightlands that threatens everyone on the island is revealed. The combat scenes are rendered to such a way to be less gory, thus more kid YA friendly. But Jack Blank and his fantastically rubbery blue friend Allegra step in to help. And in a Marvel Universe style twist, a conflicted older retainer nursing a devastating secret later plays a crucial role.
And for those you guys don't know who Jack Blank is, Jack Blank is the kid on the cover that's like got the green glowing hands, and his Allegra is the snake person on the left there.
Okay. More importantly, however, is that the book does have a satisfactory conclusion and can be read as a one-shot without further commitment to the series, prose, or future graphic stories, either one. I'll explain why in a moment.
Yes, I will. That is. This book certainly packs a story. 312 pages worth. That's the equal of a 13-issue run on the monthly comic book series. By the time I got through reading it, though, I was exhausted. And part of that is because of the pacing, and part of that is simply because as much story as there is a sense of something missing. The larger scope of the imagination from the 3 prose novels, actually 6 prose novels, that came before this book existed, being a key component that I don't know the whole backstory of all this. Now, it doesn't hurt the book in terms of you can read this book. It's not going to make a difference in terms of you knowing what's going on in the story. It just makes me personally distracted because I want to know more about what's going on with the rest of the thing. And so if it didn't have the sense of closure and resolution at the end of the story, like it was going to lead into another, spin-off, like a second book or a second graphic novel, I probably would have been much more disappointed because that sense of missing out on everything would have been even more pronounced and I would have been would not have enjoyed the book as much. I really don't have time or desire to go read the Jack Blank novels or the other 3 set novels in the prose fiction format. And that's not because the writer's a bad writer. Miklish is solid. It's just I like different series and contents in my varied entertainment, from my books to my comics to my TV to my movies. I don't like to read the same concepts or experience the same concepts over and over and over in every format. It gets to be overexposure, and I end up not liking it at all, and I don't want that. So I totally get and understand why they cross-pollinate into different formats and stuff like that. And I think it's a fine introduction to the Imagination series as a whole. It's good for kids, that are going to probably want to get into that whole thing and go find the 6 prose novels and go read those. But if I had known that was what this was, I probably wouldn't have picked the book up. But that being said, I don't want to deter any other people who are new to the series just because of my personal quirks. I certainly would recommend the book to parents and to the 10 to 13 age crowd, and I hope that the work encourages people to jump over to the prose novels. I'm just too old, too much other stuff to read to do it myself. I give it 4 out of 5. I don't know if anyone else looked at any of this.
I could not find it, so.
Okay. Here's some of the artwork. And, this is all part of a floating island. And, it's like there's different levels, like Galaxis is this intergalactic spaceport with aliens. And then there's, different places of, like high towns, like a futuristic vision with all the tech. And then Karateka, where you can see the Geisha girl, is like, they're science, but they're also not just Asian, but like period Asian, the old sensibilities and stuff as well.
And that looks like it's straight out of Blade Runner. So
yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that going on with that. And there's other little like villages and stuff like that are different type cultures. And then here's one of the stories where the kid is being taught by his parents how to be practicing sword fighting and stuff. And the kid picks his father up. And he's like, "Are we finished?" And his mom's like, "You know better." Whoops. And he goes, "Hey, what? Now we're finished." "Hey, that's cheating." "Yes, it is. But every foe you meet in battle is going to do the same or worse." And that is a valid point, a valid lesson in a fight. So they're, so this is all going on. And then he wakes up and it's actually a dream because his parents are dead. And so he sees them in a zombified form before he wakes up. And now he's like a teenager or an early, like I'd say like mid-teens. And he's like one of the guardsmen himself now.
That's some really nice art, I think.
Yeah, I think it's really good stuff. Oh, sorry about that. Let me go here.
Did you guys get the feeling that first cityscape was drawn by a different artist? Because I was not impressed with that, and then it got to the character designs, and I was like, "Oh, that's really nice."
It's drawn by the same person, but remember the character designs were done by somebody else, and he was following the other person's character designs.
Fair enough.
So I think that makes a difference in that regard. But overall, he does a lot better as the story progresses, I think. Okay, our next book is not a comic book. It is Indigenous Comics and Graphic Novels, Studies and Genre. Publisher is University of Mississippi Press. Writer is James J. Donahue. The genre is historical and academic review from March 2024. There's 2 editions. The hardcover edition is a whopping $99. Ouch. And the trade paperback is $25. Thank you. My wallet will take the latter.
Right? Yeah.
But I understand. We'll get into that cost in a minute. What it's about. In recent years, studios like Marvel and DC have seen enormous success transforming comics into major motion pictures, and at the same time, bookstores such as Barnes & Noble in the United States and Indigo in Canada have made more room for comic books and graphic novels on their shelves. Yet, despite the sustained popular appeal and heightened availability of these media, Indigenous Native American artists continue to find their work given little attention by mainstream publishers, booksellers, production houses, and academics. Nevertheless, Indigenous artists are increasingly turning to graphic narratives, with publishers like Native Realities LLC and Highwater Press carving out ever more space for Indigenous creators. In this book, James J. Donahue aims to interrogate and unravel the disparities of representation in the fields of comic studies and comics publishing. He documents and analyzes the works of several Indigenous artists, including Theo Tissot, Todd Houseman, and Aragon Starr. Through topically arranged chapters, the author explores a wide array of content produced by Indigenous creators, from superhero and science fiction comics to graphic novels and experimental narratives. While noting the importance of examining how Indigenous works are analyzed, he emphasizes that the creation of artistic and critical spaces for Indigenous comics and graphic novels should be an essential concern for the comic studies field, and not just in terms of Indigenous art for the Native American tribes. But even though it's a focus on that, he's also talking in an overview for all the different ethnicities as well. When I think of it, it's an excellent book for what its stated purpose and the intent of the author expresses it to be. It is a little dry in tone as a casual read, but I personally would consider it an essential book if I'm teaching my comics as literature courses, or if I'm giving a lecture or seminar about the Indigenous culture and its influence on the American comics art form, or in conjunction with the other various cultures as well as a whole. I definitely think it's worth people's time to seek it out in a trade edition. The 99 hardcover is way too much. It's more than a bit too rich. It's way too rich for my blood. But that is the way things tend to go with academic publications are priced. And especially when I usually do the hardcovers and sell those to the libraries and to the colleges and stuff in bulk, and that's usually why that's that price. They can do it that way and get more bulk order on the college end. So there probably isn't a high print run on the book, so it will be hard to find. But if you do come across it online or in the wild at a fair price, or if you see it at your local library, I highly recommend the read. I give it 5 stars out of 5. And obviously, these 2 gentlemen did not get a chance to look at this one. But just on the concept of it, what do you guys think about that?
You want to go, John, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I think it's intriguing, and I certainly, yes, I certainly think, hold on, I'm trying to think of what I want to say. I certainly think, different ethnicities deserved to be recognized. So hopefully this book will help that in some way.
Mm-hmm.
I personally am a huge fan of this style of book. I love comics history. I love critical analysis of comics. And as some people know, like, every culture has some form of sequential art comics, style, that are part of their culture.
Mhm.
So I would absolutely love to get my hands on this book,
Mhm.
because
Well,
I find this subject fascinating.
right. Well, I think it's also just in context of this book. It's also going back before comics in terms of the pictograms and stuff that Native American tribes and South American tribes, tribal art on walls, tribal art on different things, and how that, and the same thing in Asia and stuff, all that translates and how that became and how that associates to comics.
Absolutely.
So, whereas I guess in a proto-American culture, like very early American, English American, when we first started having the colonists here and that, there was not that element per se in the Caucasian culture of European at that moment. They kind of in America, and so what American comics kind of became an amalgamation of a lot of different other cultures.
Right.
And
And
that's
even
natural for our overall melting pot culture here in America as well. So,
and even with the almost lack of pictorial art, they still had, in early American culture, English, they had their, I forget what it's called, but where they do the etchings and then they
Mhm.
print off of that.
Right,
They had that.
right,
So that was also a form of comics. And
sure.
so do you feel that this book goes more into depth on what Scott McCloud just kind of touched on in his books?
Hmm. Uh, no, it takes a different approach than what
Okay.
Scott's doing. Um, he's talking about not just what these certain artists that he talked about that were mentioned, what their careers have done and what they've contributed and what they've brought from their culture to the comic form, but like how Marvel and DC have represented different ethnic, racial, and different tribal elements through different characters. Like there's a um, not a full chapter, but a segment on Wyatt Wingfoot, the Native American who was a friend of the Fantastic Four and dated She-Hulk for a while.
Right.
And there's commentary about like Alpha Flight with Shaman and Talisman and how that parlays into what real Native American medicine is versus what John Byrne presented versus what was later presented after Byrne. Little things like that, and showing the nuances of that, and saying these are good things that they're showing, but they need to take it further and be more truthful to the whole. Study,
Right.
Study what you're writing, write what know what you write, basically.
Right. Because overwhelmingly, different ethnic characters, superhero characters, and characters in comics in general, they tend to be cliched and stereotyped.
Yeah.
Instead of the actual
or,
representation.
or what as we call whitewashed, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree.
But the thing is, at the same time, Donahue credits Byrne, he credits some of these other writers who do it, and what they did do right as well. He's not,
Yeah,
he's not like throwing anybody under the bus, in my opinion. I think he does a really good, thorough examination for all of it throughout the book. Okay, our next book is The Termite Mound, issues 1 through 3, $5 each. Publisher is Cosmic Line Productions. The writer artist letterer is Matt Howarth. Genre is science fiction. It was released between October 2024 and January 2025 for teen and up. What it's about: in a future dystopian society, there's a climber climbing a giant termite mound outside of the city. This is considered to be an illegal activity, and the climber is to be removed from the mound by robotic drones, as you can see. But the climber has an energy being that comes out of his body to protect him and destroy the drones. Also, as you can see on the cover here. Meanwhile, in the city, two young people who are wannabe resistance against the regime in charge find a means to get inside the termite mound. They are found out and chased by authorities into the air ducts of the mound when they find someone inside them sitting. His name is Jamon, or Jamon.
Yaman.
Yeah, there you go. Yaman. That's exactly it. Yaman. And he is sending his psychic self through the climber as an energy being to protect the climber as he climbs. The two young adults are with Yaman in the duct when the next wave of authority, a flyer warrior, which is the guy with the purple gloves that you see, attacks the climber, but Yaman repels him. Thus, when he gets repelled, the regime kills the warrior's mother, sister, and another relative. I can't remember which one. As when I was writing this, and then he goes, go back out there and stop that climber. Yaman battles them again in his energy form when Andy, the young male adult that was with the resistance, is listening to a radio feed and mistakes Yaman as the person attacking the climber with his energy form instead of protecting the climber. So Andy shoots Yaman seemingly dead, and now the flyer can kill the climber. Only Ricky, the girl resistance member, tries to help Yaman, and he's still barely alive, but he uses her as a focal point for his remaining energies to help the climber get to the top of the mound as a symbol to everyone else so that they don't have to serve the regime's whims. Now, there are a couple of other subplots going on within the regime as well. Andy becomes the head operator of the regime, or he kills the head operator, then he's ordered by the computer to take the head operator's place and becomes the head of the regime. The head scientist of the regime has her own agendas as well, and those are all left open-ended without resolution, and there's a reason for that. What do I think about this? He does his usual, Howarth does his usual sci-fi comics work here. This book is supposed to be set in the same universe as his 1997 DC Helix comic series, Starcrossed, which I was a big fan of. That's why I got this series, and I can see it, but unfortunately, it just doesn't have the same level of story depth that Starcrossed did, and it doesn't have a finish. Howard left the story open-ended with an addendum of what could be the story moving forward, but he hasn't actually finished the story by his own admission. He explains that this is one of his stories that sat unpublished in his flat files from the 1990s, and unfortunately, it feels very much like that. It has a 1990 sensibility in the way it's set up, but by concluding a story with the climber reaching the top of the mound with no cause and effect to that achievement and what it means to everyone else, it feels like it's just an incompleted project. A well-executed and fun project, but an incompleted one nonetheless. And that's why I can only give it 3 out of 5. If it had an actual continuation and finished the whole thing in line with what he's alluding to in the addendum, it has the potential to be a 4.5 to a 5-star series. So I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, I didn't. Okay. Is it right? Nope, it's not right here. Okay, I thought I had it right nearby. What did you think of the artwork of the covers anyway, gentlemen?
It almost appeared to, this is probably just me, but it appeared to be like a very rough, like Corbin-esque almost. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is kind of in that vein, yes. Corbin Mobius combination with Mobius's pointillism effects.
Yeah.
Yep. Let me step away for just a second. I'll let you two talk a little bit more. I'm going to stop my cam. I'm going to go get the book.
Okay, yeah, I'm interested to see more of the artwork. What did you think of the artwork, John?
I didn't think it was bad. I mean, I didn't really have any other artists to compare it to.
Are you familiar with Corbin?
Not really, no.
Have you ever watched the heavy metal movie?
Yes, I have.
Okay, Den,
Okay,
that's Corbin.
okay.
And just the layouts and the musculature and everything. It was just I felt it was very Corbin-esque.
Yeah. Now the interior art is black and white, which is another reason why some people probably weren't going to get into this because how people are about black and white. Black and white doesn't do nothing.
You know what? If it's done well, there's nothing as beautiful as a black and white page.
Okay, there's a little bit more of the cover there. You can see a little bit more of the quality of the detail. And the cross hatching on the cover.
Yeah, that's some nice work on those trees, on the foliage.
Actually, that's not foliage. That's clouds.
Is that clouds? Oh, I thought it was foliage from the tree. Oh, that's not even a tree. It's the termite mound. Boy, okay. Catch up, Chris. Oh, now see, I like that much better than the color art.
Yeah, I do too. But you see how big the termite mound is in perspective now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he's climbing this thing, and there's the ones, and again they're trying to shoot him off the side of the building, off the side of the mound, and that's when he has the energy projection come out of him.
Yeah, I think in this instance the color actually takes away from the art.
Yeah. And then here's where the guy, this first soldier comes in, and he has a jetpack and a rifle, but it doesn't stop the energy being, as you can see. Here's where Andy and Ricky are running away from the regime, trying to get into the mound, and they crawl through the air ducts of the mound and find him.
Yeah, I could get into this.
Yeah, so it's a nice overall thing, like I said, it's not quite as good as Starcrossed was, but it's not finished either. If it was completely finished, I think it would have been. I mean, here's the addendum. What if you wanted possible sequels? And he tells you what happens to every member of the thing: the climber, the professor, Wavy Lines, which was the female who had the agenda. Tube Face, Yamon. Yamon's the guy right there that looks, the Rasta guy with the energy emanating off of him. Andy Square, which of course was, different things going on there, but I made it. I climbed to the top. But I mean, he gets so the warrior gets so angry that he just has to just like destroy everything. because he lost his wife and his daughter and everything because he failed the first time. He's not going to stop until he destroys everything. So it's a pretty cool thing. And when I say he destroys everything, look at what he does to the Termite Mound.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he just puts blast holes all through the top of it while he's trying to. It's a wonder the whole thing doesn't collapse in on itself.
So there's no real reason or description of the Termite Mound itself?
Basically, it's like an alien construct with different I don't want to spoil it for you.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, but you've seen the Kree Supreme Intelligence.
Yeah.
With the screen and the face and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's like what their leader is. Inside
Okay.
stuff. And there's other things going on. And like I said, they got the Professor wavy links or whatever. And she's got like all the tubes, all the little like insertions where you can put the plugs in her head. And she's like connected to the machine.
Okay.
And stuff. There's all kinds of cool stuff in there. So there's a lot going on with that. Okay, let's see. Did we get through all of them then? No, we got one more to go. Okay. Come on. All right, we got one more. And that's Thrilling Tales of Vistas Unknown #1. Publisher Craig A. Tayleffer Comics and Books. Writer-artist is mostly Craig Tayleffer. Marv Wolfman writes one of the stories. Genre science fiction fantasy short story collection, released in July 2024. What it's about. This collection of short stories and samplers by creator Craig Tayleffer consists of 5 stories produced between 1993 and 2007. Also features some pinups and sketch art. One short story, Generations, was written by Marv Wolfman. In a case of curious cargo, the duo shown here on the cover are shipping an experiment to a planet where they are stopped by space pirates. And when they open the case where the experiment is, it turns into an ever-growing humanoid monster that the duo have to figure out how to transform back to its infant form and to escape the pirates. In Generations, a familial line of magic users to scientists is explored with an interesting conclusion. There's also Gold Fever, Lady of the Lake, and The Call of the Nature that round out the rest of the book. I didn't want to go into all the detail of every one of the stories. What do I think of it? Really nice book if you like black and white art and science fiction fantasy comics. All these stories would have been good filler stories for titles like Dark Horse Presents back in the day, or the 1980s science fiction fantasy indie titles like Alien Worlds or Twisted Tales. In fact, Tayleffer comments that he was born too late and that's where he belonged, was in those books. Some of these appeared in other anthology collections back in the 90s and early 2000s. All the artwork is gorgeous and should appeal to fans of that type of work. Very much worth your time and money if you can come across it. As this was a crowdfunded book, I don't know if it's a title you're going to come across in stores or even online, but maybe Craig has copies if you ask him online. He is available. Just look up Craig on Facebook. I give it 4 out of 5. The only reason it's not getting a 5-star is because there were a couple of typos and spelling errors in the lettering that he should have caught and fixed, as this was reprints. And so, if it was the first time that they're ever being aired or seen, then I would say, okay, but if you're doing it as reprints of some of them, that should have been caught and fixed, in my opinion. But other than that, let's take a quick look at that book real quick. And here's the original right here. Now, the cover of this did remind me, we just did Aaron Lopresti's Kit Carter last week or the week before, and it has very similar things in a way. In the fact that they're both, the female in space with the monkey sidekick. But this is the back cover.
That art is gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that the inside does not disappoint.
No,
Oh yeah.
I mean, this does not need to be colored in any way.
No. Nope. Matter of fact, a modern colorist would probably just F it up.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I don't know who colored the cover. I mean, that's a nice coloring job.
Yes. But someone who doesn't necessarily know what they're doing,
Mhm.
how to handle that type of art, would over render it,
Yeah, right. Yeah. And he's got so much rendering in this, there's no reason to color render it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, flat colors would work nicely, but they're not necessary at all.
No. And here's how the little baby explodes up into a monster. Very much like the you just mentioned heavy metal. The Captain Stern character, hand over fist.
Yes.
So, and so the girl's having him chase her around, and he's trying to get the reducer gun to put the field around him to make him go back to an infant while she's getting chased. Someone smash! And he gets a hold of her, and you think, oh, he's going to kill her. Nope. Monkey boy got her back, got the gun, shot him, back to a baby.
Very nice.
It's just really good stuff. And then, after Frazetta, the classic, homage to Frazetta.
Yeah, it's just that artwork is just slick.
And then, here's the Generations book that Marv Wolfman wrote. And it starts out with the girl being helping her grandparent, who's a mage. And they're like, all the magic and knowledge gets passed down through generations of different people all throughout. And they cut it all the way to a former, modern day time, where she's having a lecture, basically. And she just won a bunch of awards and stuff like that. And she's talking about how different things are misused and different tools and stuff like that.
I got to get my hand on that book.
And she basically leaves the award behind, and they're all mad at her and stuff. But she goes into and starts using her magical skills that her ancestors gave her.
Little Red Sonja.
Yeah. So there's all kinds of cool stuff in this. I don't want to spoil them, like I say, but just really good.
Is that a standard? Is that a standard comic book size, or is that a magazine? Okay,
standard comic size. Yep. In fact, you remember the Kickstarter show I did last week?
Yes.
Or not last week, but 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Where it was the fantasy one about the thief.
Yeah.
Same artist.
Okay.
So if you like this, you'll like that one.
Yeah, I really I'd like to get my hands on that book. So.
Yeah. So if he's got, you can go to that Kickstarter. Go back to the Kickstarter I had on that episode.
Okay.
And you can contact him, or you can, like I say, it's Craig Tailleffer. I can send you a link to his Facebook page. You can ask him.
Okay, cool.
If he's got any. Okay, that's pretty much all our show for tonight. So let's see what we got going on for the rest of the week. Tomorrow night. Chris, what did you do? It's Attack of the B horror movies. Join us as we each offer up 5 selections for 1980s B horror movies and review and judge each other's selections. But that's not the only thing we've got going on next week. We've got other stuff going on. Let's go ahead and talk about that before we head out the door. Monday, we'll be back with Monday Manga. 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll be reviewing Taka by Ryan Jampol. Next week, Tuesday, we have our crowdfunding talk at 9 p.m. The platform Zoop takes center stage as I surf the site and talk about what I see or don't see on the site. And we might even have a guest, too. I'm not sure. I want to get a certain person on, but we may have to wait until a different topic because I know what he's going to want to talk about is not Zoop. But we'll see. Then next week on Thursday, this is what we're reviewing. Primer, Clashing Colors 1 through 3 from DC. Beowulf. I'm not sure. I don't remember who the publisher is on that. The Nightcrawlers from Ablaze. The Hard Switch. Slightly Exaggerated finally came in. This was supposed to, I ordered this. It was supposed to come out in October, and I finally got it last week. The Night Eaters, Book 1 from Marjorie Liu and Sana Tanaka of Monstrous fame. Tao Bang. This is from hold on a second. Throat getting dry there. Magnetic Press does Tao Bang. Dragon Garage from James Turner and Slave Labor Graphics. Warbirds by Jeffrey B. Wetzel and Steve Parkhouse. That's a Dark Horse book, I believe. And Ghost Band. I don't know if you guys remember way back when, but we actually promoted the crowdfunder for this Ghost Band series by Jason McNamara. So
I think I do remember that.
So we're going to finally get a chance to review that. And then there's stuff that Chris is going to surprise us with as well. Oh, this is going to be interesting. Now, unfortunately, John will not be with us next week. He's got family coming in by town. So we wish him safe week and have fun. But we will see him tomorrow, and he'll be back on Friday next week. We just don't know what we're doing Friday next week yet.
Yes.
So anything else you guys want to add before we get off for tonight?
I had a question. Zoop, is that like a new crowdfunding platform, or is that one that's been around?
It's been around a while, but it's not as popular as, say, Kickstarter or Indiegogo. That's all.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that next week. But until then, if you want to reach out to me, have any questions, both the Raven LBR72 at gmail.com. You got a question for John Gray Figaro at hotmail.com. And then the King and CMYK is Christopher M. Hall, 1973 at gmail.com. Until later, folks.
Good night.
Quoth the Raven, nevermore.
Nevermore.
Yeah. We're still here. Just having a little bit of a difficulty with this silly machine. Doesn't want to do what it's supposed to. Why are you doing that? There we go.